Welcome to the Dales Report, and happy to be joined once again with the CEO of Tryp Therapeutics, Greg McKee joins us. Greg, how are things?
Chad, good. Great to see you. Thanks for having me again.
Yeah, we had you on a couple of weeks ago, but how's the summer been? Still treating you well?
Going well. Definitely getting a little bit warm here in Southern California these last couple of weeks, but yeah, very good. Thanks. Then thanks for asking.
Well, I know obviously the Northwest, crazy heat wave to say the least. What have you experienced the last couple of weeks as far as heat down there?
We've been pretty fortunate on the coast actually, but inland it's been a scorcher. Yeah, record temperatures throughout the kind of inland empire as it's called.
Well, some of the heat temperatures there, I think it was, I forget where it was. Might have been Palm Springs, but in and around there last year, they recorded the hottest temperature ever on planet Earth. It was like 130 degrees, which is crazy.
Yes, that's right. In Death Valley. Yep, I think that's right. Unbelievable, right?
Well, heating up is this industry. I'm looking at the way it's trending. Last couple of weeks, great performance for the overall industry and the health. What are you experiencing as a CEO of your company, and what is some of the feedback that you're hearing of the last couple of weeks? Do you see the momentum getting built?
We're definitely getting good feedback and good momentum. There's been a lot of activity over the last couple of weeks, even though we're kind of in the middle of summer. In particular, we've been participating in a few different banker conferences, and we've gotten some great input. We've been able to participate in a couple of different panels, and have a few of our academic collaborators showcased in those, which we've gotten some good input from investors in terms of the progress of the company and frankly what the industry is doing overall.
Do you see more and more analysts getting involved? Well, of course we do. We see it on paper, but I don't know what you can and can't share, but at the end of the day, do you feel like there's a lot of interest growing as far as analysts that are contacting you? What are some of the key mission statements that you're communicating that many investors and let's say analysts in this case that are liking about your story?
Yeah, what I see happening is a shift more towards institutional investors, right? We're beginning to see actually two things happen. One, institutional investors taking a much closer look, which is sort of being driven by analysts taking a look at the industry as well. And second of all, we're seeing some corporate interest from traditional pharmaceutical companies, and I think that's really being driven by the fact that more and more companies are headed into the clinic. And I think that there's a realization that there's a lot to be here, a lot to be had here in the industry as companies begin to move their compounds further into clinical development.
It's exciting, isn't it?
It's fantastic, space to be in for sure.
Yeah. Well, big news release earlier this week. Your company, Tryp Therapeutics, announced plans to conduct a phase 2A clinical trial. This is big, with Chronic Pain and Fatigue Research Center in the Department of Anesthesiology at the University of Michigan Medical School. This announcement comes 2 weeks after entering into an advisory agreement with George Masur from the same school and department. So walk me through what this means to obtain this type of backing as you head into a phase 2 trial later this year.
Yeah, we're very excited about this, Chad, on several different levels. So first of all, around the fibromyalgia phase 2A clinical study with Dan Claw's department there at the University of Michigan. We're thrilled to be working with Dr. Claw. He is a world expert in this field. He's been involved in drug development and fibromyalgia for decades, and was involved in all three of the currently FDA-approved drugs in that space.
Okay.
Even having said that, he's still excited and sees great need for additional therapeutic options for these patients, and that's why he's in large part willing to and actually pressing to work with Tryp in this space. So one, we're very excited about that, to work with him in that quality of researcher, that quality of institution. Second of all, we're quite excited to be working in fibromyalgia, which will be our second indication. We expect to be announcing our IND. Obviously, we talked about the University of Florida previously in the eating disorder space. This will now give us a foothold on a clinical study in a second indication. And thirdly, I think what's really underneath this is that this is just sort of the beginning of what could be a number of different applications of our psychedelic therapy in chronic pain broadly. So we're excited for this on many different levels.
So to fast track, I don't want to say fast track, but just for people that are trying to get a better understanding, research obviously is at the forefront. It takes so much time. You can't fast track this. But when it comes to relationship building and some of the relationships that you are establishing, How does that all come to fruition? Is a lot of it have to do with your previous, obviously, career and some of the relationships that you build within the big pharma industry?
I tell you, it comes from a lot of different angles, and there's many different people that are really helping support to make this happen. But frankly, we're doing a lot of outreach to academic institutions right now, from the board level, from within the team, and so forth, and a little bit, frankly, inbound in some of the other, contexts that we've had over the years. But we've been working to, frankly, accelerate and fast track, as you're saying, the development through building these collaborations with a number of different academic collaborators of the highest of quality. And we've, named two. We've got a couple others also kind of in the works right now that we anticipate being able to speak to, shortly. That also allows us to get, frankly, have multiple shots on goal, which I think, from a risk perspective is incredibly helpful for all of us, in that we have an opportunity to have data readouts from a number of different indications. So we're working these relationships from a number of different perspectives. And frankly, it's just a lot of step-by-step kind of work, identifying the strongest players in this space, reaching out to them through either our own contacts or contacts of individuals that we know, and then, pushing development from there.
So I'm a little biased. I'm a Michigan grad, so go blue. So,
okay. Go blue.
So quick question, what should investors understand about this agreement and a lot of the research that's being conducted? Because this is very much a prestigious school.
Right. Well, yes. So one more time, go blue, right? Don't want to miss that. A couple different things, right? So one, obviously the quality institution, which goes without saying. I think, the point I made, previously, that Dr. Claw is just, he's a world-renowned expert. I mean, this guy has worked on every single approved drug in this space of fibromyalgia. So he knows a thing or two about this particular therapeutic area. We also have a second collaboration with George Mashur, as you mentioned, to help us work through the formulation of our novel route of administration that will be the primary drug that we take forward. But if you take a look at his background, he's the department chair, or he's the chair of the Department of Anesthesiology, which is a fantastic position, of course. He's got just a stellar academic track record behind that. And so, high quality institution, high quality individuals that we're working with who really know these fields, in a depth that's just unbeatable, frankly, and unprecedented anywhere. So those are the kind of the biggest things. And then thirdly, from an investor's perspective, this allows us to really move all this forward rapidly. So we're able to couple our expertise in psychedelics with their expertise in fibromyalgia, for example, in Dr. Claw's group. And then specifically in George Mashur's group, we've got the ability to tap into his expertise on very specific preclinical models that will allow us to quickly evaluate the correct formulation that we'll take forward into phase 2B clinical studies once we get positive readouts from these 2A trials.
Great. It's fascinating. The more and more I see people that are entering this space, it turns my head every single week, but it's obviously very promising. As we dive deeper into these phase 2 trials, Tryp will now join MindMed, which is trialing LSD to treat severe pain conditions via Project Angie as the most advanced pain-based trials in the whole industry. So how optimistic do you feel about psilocybin producing positive results relative to other drug compounds, given obviously that you're a leader within your domain?
We continue to probe and ask the questions, why psilocybin and its derivatives versus other chemistries? And the answer we continue to get back is frankly, there's a tremendous amount of data already in the field with the use of this around the safety profile, and this chemistry's ability to get patients in the dissociative state, which everybody agrees is a requirement to actually see the utility when it's coupled with psychotherapy. So far, when we've been continuing to probe this with various different academic collaborators, what comes back at us is just more information, certain types of data and so forth that seems to confirm this theory, this idea that very likely there's a high chance that psychedelics and specifically psilocybin and its derivatives will work to help these patients.
That's encouraging to hear. Also wanted to talk a little bit about Dr. Robin Carhart-Harris, who is a member of the Tryp Scientific Advisory Board, as we've talked about in the past.
Yes.
We understand that he has conducted a lot of research of Imperial College London previously. It can be a valuable resource in helping to design the trial and other facets, including chronic pain. So can you tell us how his advisory will help in this fibromyalgia trial, which is, again, as I said, chronic pain? And do you feel and expect him to become even more integrated with your team as time moves on?
Dr. Harris has been, Robin Carhart Harris has been a fantastic supporter, of ours, and a great collaborator on so many different levels. Specifically, what we're doing right now, Shad, is that we're taking the expertise from Dr. Claw around fibromyalgia, for example, and we're coupling that with all of Robin's deep expertise around psychedelics. So we're marrying those two bodies of intellectual, know how those two individuals, frankly, brain trust in these two respective areas, and molding them together to come up with a treatment paradigm in the pain arena that frankly hasn't been developed yet. So that's the real value of what Dr. Robin Carhart Harris brings to the table for us. We're thrilled at the fact that he's now moved from United Kingdom over to UC San Francisco and has an appointment as a professor there, and we anticipate continuing to have the opportunity to work with them on a more regular basis. So more than
that's encouraging to hear, right?
We're very excited about the prospects of continuing to deepen our relationship with him, for sure.
It's great. Well, last thing I wanted to ask, bringing this all together, and this is an important one. This one really grabs my interest concerning potential near-term growth, and let's face it, long-term as well. Currently, your company has a basic market capitalization that's in around 35 million Canadian, whereas the lowest market cap of any public psilocybin company in phase 2 trials has a market cap north of 130 million Canadian. So I know you're not one to comment on share price. However, this has to grab your attention, does it not, Greg? And I guess what's the message that you want to communicate? Because this should really grab a lot of investors' interest right away now that you're entering this phase 2.
For sure. I think there's no doubt that we're undervalued relative to other players in our space. And specifically, as you pointed out, if you look at other companies that are in the clinic, and it's a very rarefied set of companies that are at that stage, we're about ready to have at least 2 phase 2A studies up and running. And I think that we'll actually be able to beat that and have potentially a third and possibly a fourth up and running before the end of the year. So that will really put us in a unique position relative to other companies. And certainly, that gives tremendous upside for investors who get involved in the company, at this price point.
Exciting to say the least. Well, keep up the great work. I know you're busy, but I really appreciate you taking the time to check in. Tryp trades on the CSC under the ticker symbol TRYP, and under the OTC under the ticker symbol TRYPF. Greg, appreciate your time.
Chad, great to be with you as always.
All right, take care.